Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this Celtic style wraparound bracelet. It looks like this. So I have this kind of Celtic inspired knot in the middle, where we then have a wraparound bracelet on the sides of that. So going out and creating the rest of the bracelet here, we just have that knot in the middle that just breaks it up and makes it a bit different. And I just finished it off with some ribbon ends. And then it looks a little something like this on. So we then have this knot in the middle of the bracelet, and then the wraparound style going around the sides, and it sits like that. So it gives a really nice effect and breaks it up there in the middle with that knot. So if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that I'm going to be using. So this is just to demonstrate with. The first thing here is the cord. So we're going to be needing a bit of a thicker cord. I'm using a 1.5mm leather cord here in this kind of metallic finish pink colour. Obviously that's your choice completely. And it doesn't have to be this thickness. You can use a different kind of cord, but then also a thinner or a thicker cord. It really depends on the look that you want for your final piece. And then we'll need some beads as well. So here I'm using some 3mm rounds, and these are some copper metal spacer beads. I just thought the copper would go nicely with the colour of my cord there. You can obviously choose whatever you want to. And also you don't have to use just a 3mm bead. So you can use smaller beads, larger beads, whatever fits with your design really, and the other materials that you're using as well. And then to help attach those beads, I'm going to be using a thread. So this is an S-lon size D, so basically like a sewing thread. And in this case, I've got this kind of dark reddish colour, a bit pinkish. And this is really just to match the cord that I'm using, the leather cord, in the best possible way. So this was the one I had that matched the best, just to make it as seamless as possible so the thread blends in with the cord. But you could also choose a colour to purposely stand out. That will give a really nice look as well. And then to use with the thread, I'm going to be using 2 beading needles here. I'm going to be using them at the same time. And then to finish it off, I've got my ribbon ends here as well to give it a nice professional finish. And then use my findings, so extended chain, jump rings and lost or claw clasp. You can obviously choose whatever findings you want to. So let's get it all together and let's get started. And then the first thing we need to do to get started is cut some lengths of cord here of the leather cord, so the thicker one that you're using. And I've got 2 lengths, so 2 separate lengths completely cut free of each other, of about 40 centimeters each. So each of these is basically going to form half of the bracelet, and then obviously coming from the middle from that knot. So it's going to be folded over in half as well. So we need these lengths to begin with. So I'm then going to take my 2 lengths of leather cord here and then start making the knot in the middle of it, because we're going to be working from the knot and out towards the side, doing one side at a time once we've made the knot. So what I'm going to do is we need to combine these 2 cords to get the knot in place. So you want to first of all find roughly where the middle is. I'm going to fold them over in half, and then here is the middle, and then we need to combine them into the knot like I said. So I'm going to do that by having the middle become this little loop, and then I'm going to cross the legs over like that, and then I'm just going to lay it down here, and then with the other one I'm also just going to fold that in half and find the middle, and then again we have this little loop where the middle is. And this loop is going to go the opposite direction to the one we already made, and that's laid down there. And then what we need to do is combine them, but so they also stay together and create that kind of knot. So that means this is going to go on this side with the legs in the opposite direction than the other one, but we need to intertwine them, you could say. So I'm just going to lay the loop there, and then to make sure they stay together, what we basically need to do is work in opposites, you could kind of say in a way. So that means this first cord that this new leg of the new one, the new loop that I just made, runs into, you need to check what that does with the previous overlap. So that's the one here in the middle. So that goes over, so that means it needs to come under the next one, which means that this new cord goes over it. So that's already laying correct. But on the other side, on the bottom side here, this cord coming down goes under in the middle there. So that needs to go over, so that means the new leg needs to come underneath that. So always thinking opposites, like this. So that's the first step where the loop is, or the curve here. And just try and kind of keep it so it stays roughly in the middle of the cords. And then we need to bring the new legs in towards the middle in the original first loop there. And to do that, we again need to check this top cord needs to go opposite the next one it's running into, because these 2 both need to come in to the middle of that loop, but in the right direction. So that means that the top one, like I said, needs to go underneath this one, because if you look in the middle, this curved one goes underneath, so that now needs to be on top. So that means this one goes underneath, so I'm just going to bring it under the whole loop here, like that, and it lays just underneath in the middle there. And then the other leg from the bottom, you need to do the opposite as well. So that means that runs into the next one, the next card here, that goes over that crossover in the middle. So this new one needs to go over that because that needs to come underneath. Just bringing that back over there. So that means I need to make this come over, but we need these two legs to be fastened there in the middle as well. So to do the opposite, I need to come down through the loop on this side of the opposite leg, and I need to come underneath it. So just lift that up inside the loop and bring this cord underneath, but then up on the other side within the loop here, just like that. So you can see I'm still inside the loop, but on the other side of this cord, on the opposite side, I'm coming up there. And then that's basically the knot. And they're all now intertwined. And you can move it around, as you can see, because we've intertwined them opposite all the way, it makes it stay together. And all you gotta do is pull it tighter. And obviously try and make sure that you have somewhat equal lengths on all your cords. And then really you just want to adjust it until you've achieved the tightness of the knot here that you like for yours. So just keep doing that. So I now tighten my knot here to the point where I like the way it looks. And then also I think it's going to fit nicely with the beads. And it's not going to come undone because, like I said, it's all intertwined, so it's nice and safe and secure there. So now what we need to do is start adding in our beads. What I'm going to be doing is working on my mini macrame board here. It has these notches along the side, it just makes it much easier. So I'm just going to be using them and attaching my lengths of my cord here. And I'm just going to work on one side at a time of the knot, like I said. So attach like this, and then the knot here is the middle point, and then I'm just going to start on one side of it and then work my way there, adding in the beads. And this is then where we need to get our thread and needles out as well, because we're going to be attaching the beads with them. So what I've done is I've taken the length of my thread. Now I just like working with about a wingspan, so whatever you're comfortable working with really. And also bear in mind it's only just really half the bracelet at a time, so they don't need to be that long. And then I've attached one needle here on each end of the same thread, and then I've just put tails through. So the tails are about equal on each side, so we don't run out of thread on one side before the other ideally, and also so we can keep releasing some more thread as we're working with it, so it's shorter to work with as we start out. And then also we obviously need to get our beads ready. So here I have my little metal spacer beads in copper, and what we're going to do first of all is we obviously need to get a thread attached onto here. I'm going to do that adding in the first bead though, so I'm just going to add one bead onto my thread here through one of my needles, and then I need to take one needle underneath my cords, my leather cords there, that's attached to my board, and then bring my bead all the way into the middle there, so the bead lays underneath the two cords but on the thread. And now to attach this, because obviously it needs to be fastened so we can keep working with it, I'm going to be going back through the bead. So my two threads are coming out underneath the cord on each side. So what I'm going to do is take one needle at a time, bring it around the top of the cord, and coming from the right, going back around the right cord, and then back through the bead. And I like to cross through to underneath the cord on the other side. And the first bead here is always the kind of most fiddly one, just purely because obviously it's loose still. So just take your time, and we just need to get this attached first. And now obviously just got to avoid a little knot here, like that. And then I'm trying to keep my bead in the middle, but we can still adjust that. So that's the one thread through the bead again. So I'm going to take my needle from the other side. This is the thread that was going towards my left from the bead. It's coming out underneath the cord. I'm bringing it back around and over the top of the cord, go through the bead, and then back underneath the right cord. So basically going down through the middle in between the cords there while going through the bead. just like that. So you can see now the bead is more attached to the cords there. But then what I just want to make sure to do is, before I continue, I want to try and make sure that this is somewhat in the middle. So I put my 2 needles together and then measure just to see if I have about the same length on each side, and I don't quite have that. So just same principle as before, it's just to make sure you don't run out of thread on one side before the other, at least not too soon. So I'm just going to loosen up the thread by the bead a little bit and then pull on the side where I need that little bit more thread, and then measure again, and that feels much better. So there we go, that's about the middle. And then you want to just position your bead as close to the knot as you can get. So I'm just going to push it up, and I like to push on the actual threads that are on the side there going around the cord, because those are the ones you want to move. Just push it up until you're happy with where it sits. And then, because this is the first bead, I always like to go through this an extra time at least. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I have my thread with my needle on the right side. It's coming underneath the cord. I'm going to go back around the top of that cord, through the bead, and down underneath the cord on the other side. So I'm just doing the exact same thing, pulling this all the way through, and then taking the thread on the other side, do the same, go around the top of the cord, through the bead. Just got to find the hole here to make sure it gets fastened more securely, because it is the first bead here. Through the bead and underneath the cord on the other side, which once you start attaching your beads and they become kind of tight against the cord, which is obviously what we want, it can get a little bit harder to get your needles through, but you just got to kind of maneuver around the cords on the side, because you can almost say the cords, the leather cords here on the side of the beads are actually in a way blocking the holes a little bit on the bead. So you just got to maneuver your needle around it, just like that. And then that's my first bead attached nicely. So we have that in place. We're now ready to continue to add the next bead. And to do that, you take one of your needles first of all, it doesn't matter which one, whatever you're comfortable with. Take your next bead onto that needle, like that, and then pull it down your thread a little bit. And take that needle out to the side. And then I have my bead on that thread. Then I take the needle from the other side, so the opposite side, whatever side you started with, take my needle through the same bead, but in the opposite direction, just like that, and pull it all the way through. And then I grab my threads from each side and pull them down, and that just pulls the bead all the way down right there in the middle. And it's going to sit just below the previous one. And then what we need to do is, because right now obviously it's loose and laying on top, we need to just get the needles or the threads in the right position again. So right now they're coming up out of the bead above the cords on the side. We want them to come below, so it's always kind of opposite, going from above down below. So I'm going to put my needle and thread down through the middle of the cords, just the one from the left and out to the left side again. Then I'm going to take the one from the right side down through and out to the right again. So this is just repositioning the needles and thread, so we can get in the right position again to keep adding in beads as well. And there you go, you can see it sits really nice, so they're right below the previous one. And basically you just want to keep doing this to add in more beads. So again, I take my, in this case, left needle, but like I said, it doesn't matter which one you start with, and then add another bead onto that and pull it down the thread a little bit. And then I take the needle from the other side, go through the same bead but in the opposite direction, and pull that through as well. And then you pull it down by using the threads here all the way there. You can see it sits right below the previous one. And then again, remember the same principle. Right now the thread is coming above the cord from the previous bead, but then it's going out of the current bead above the cord as well. It needs to be opposite, so we need to just bring our threads out under the cords instead. So just the one from one side, take it down through the 2 cords and out towards the same side where it was coming from, just to get them into the right position, and then tighten it nicely. So also every time you add a bead, just tighten it nicely so we don't get any loose beads along the way further back in that, because then it'll be much harder to tighten. So you just keep adding your beads in like this. Obviously remember, this is about half the bracelet, minus that little middle knot, but also minus whatever clasp you're using. So get to the length that's going to be almost half the bracelet, and you basically just want to start doing the exact same thing on the other side of the knot as well. And then once you reach the whole length, then I'll finish it off and show you the next step. So now that I then kept adding my beads in here on both sides of that initial knot in the middle, you can see there I have my beads on both sides, and I've reached the length that I want mine to be, obviously minus the clasp as well. Then what we need to do is then just get rid of the excess thread and obviously secure it in place as well, so it's going to be nice and wearable. And to do that, we're basically going to be backtracking a little bit in the weave that we've already done here. So we've added in the beads. So I'm just going to start with one needle, because we're going to be doing the same with both of them obviously, because we have 2 loose threads. So first what we have is I'm coming out from that very last bead there, and right now I'm just coming out below. So what I want to do is, like I said, I'm backtracking and going through the beads, but I'm going to be tying knots along the way. And I'm going to tie more than just one knot because it's going to make it nice and secure. So I'm going to take my needle from the right side here, go down through the cords again and out to the same side. And here I want to tie my first knot. So what I'm going to do is keep hold of this, and we have a little loop there. I'm going to go through that with my needle. I'm going to go through it twice. It makes it a little bit more secure. And then I'm going to tighten this all the way down. Obviously at this point as well, you want to make sure that your whole piece so far we added the beads is nice and tight as well, so everything sits right. So you have a little knot here on the side, and then I'm going to take my needle and go through the bead as well, that very last one. I'm just going to go straight through it out to the opposite side, like that. And then we're going to be doing the exact same thing with the thread from the other side as well. So I'm going to take it, it's coming out from below the cord, and then go down through the 2 cords there, and then keep hold of the loop and go through that twice with your needle, just like the other side. Pull that all the way down. We're tying this little knot right on the side, securing the last bead in place as well, and then we take the same needle and just go through that bead. And this is then also just to get into position to continue making some knots and also have it blend in as much as possible. So just like that, that's the very first step. And the reason that I did that as well is, first of all, to get the knots in there, so get going with tying off the threads, but also get the cords, or rather the threads here, in the right position so we can follow the thread path that we've already done, just to make it as seamless as possible, to make it blend in. So again, I'm going to take one at a time, and then we need to start moving upwards or backwards for what you've already done. So I'm going to take, right now it's coming out above the cord, we need to go around it again. I'm going to take my needle, come around, and then go from below and come up between the 2 beads now, like this, and pull this through, and not all the way, because we want to just make sure we have this little loop before we pull it all the way. And again, same as before, I'm just going to go through this twice with my needle, and then as I'm tying this, I want to tighten it all the way down, just like that. And then I'm going to take the same needle that we just tied that knot with, and we're going to come from below again and go through the bead then. So just find the bead. I might have to maneuver it a little bit because, again, the cord is technically blocking the holes in the beads, because the holes down the sides now of how we added them. So just go through it, and I'm coming out on the other side, and then I'm coming out above to get into position for the next one. That was that side, and then we need to do the same thing but on the other side as well. And I just like to go from side to side. I find that a bit easier, because then you kind of doing them equally. So, get that one out of the way. I'm going to take my needle from below and up between the two beads, but on this side, on the left side where it's coming from. Obviously it doesn't matter because there's technically space between the beads, so you can pull the thread between. Then I'm going to go through the loop with my needle twice, pull that down, tighten that knot, and then again take the same needle, go through the bead, the second one in this case again now, find the hole from below is where I'm going through to kind of follow that thread path, and then come out on the other side, and then I'm coming out above the cord, just like that, and then just pull it all the way through, and there we go. And that's basically what I'm going to keep doing now for a little bit. So I'm going to tie a few knots here. Again, just start with whichever side you're comfortable with. Take your needle, again from below, and it's coming up between now the next two beads. So you always want to move up a gap or move up a bead to tie the next knot. Just like this. Pull it through so you have your loop, and then go through that twice. Tighten the knot down, and then go through the bead with the same needle and thread. Coming from below here, going through it, just pushing the leather cord a bit out of the way, and out to the opposite side. So basically constantly tying a knot every step and then moving to the opposite side and then repeating the same thing over again. So obviously that's the right side. Now I'm just going to do the knot on the left side as well. And you just want to keep doing this, and then pretty much just do however many knots you're comfortable with. I'm just going to do a few more here. I don't want to do it all the way up. You could do if you want to, if you have enough thread. But you can see it adds a little bit more thread, but it does blend in at the same time. Then once I've done the last knots, I'm going to go through a few more beads, because what you don't want to do is cut off the thread right where you've done a knot, because that will most likely come undone then. So I'm going to go through some more beads after I've done my last knot. Then what you could also do is add some glue to your knots here if you want the extra security. That's completely up to you. So once you then got rid of your thread here, then this is when I'm going to use the ribbon ends to finish it off. That's just what I'm going to be using. You can obviously do whatever you want to. Make a button and loop closure, that's completely up to you, and just use the ends for that. But I'm going to be using this, so what I'm going to do is, well, first of all I need to cut down the leather as well, because obviously they need to fit inside of this ribbon end. I'm also just going to be using a bit of glue just for the extra security, and this is the glue that I'm using here, the GS Hypo Cement, just because it dries clear, so in case anything spills out, but it's also nice and strong long term as well. So first of all, like I said, I want to cut down the leather, so I'm just going to grab my scissors, and then I want to cut them down and measure against the ribbon ends here, just so the length that's left is going to fit just nicely inside of it there. So not too long and not too short. Rather too long than too short, because you can always cut off a little bit extra. But obviously if you cut them too short, you can't really do anything about that. So cut off the excess leather, like that. Then I'm going to get my glue, and then I want to get the glue inside of the ribbon end here. So just up and down the sides of the actual inside of the ribbon end. And it's just like I said, for that extra security, so it's going to be much more durable long term. So get some nice glue in there, and you don't want to put too much in obviously, because then when you clamp it down it's just going to come spilling out. Put just a nice amount on the sides. Then we're going to get some flat nose pliers here. Just going to grab onto it because it's such a small ribbon end, and then I'm going to put the very ends of the leather inside, making sure that they don't stick out the sides of the ribbon end here. So if you need to, just squeeze them in a little bit. And then obviously we need to then start clamping this down. So just make sure it's positioned properly, that it's right after the last bead. And then before I squeeze down completely tight, I like to just do a double check all the way around that it's sitting nicely, before I then go in and do the final squeeze. Because once you've done that, you won't really be able to undo that. I always go in from the sides as well, just to give it a nice and gentle squeeze there. You also have these little kind of teeth on the edges. It's almost like a crocodile mouth. That's going to grab onto the leather nicely as well. So there we go. And then the glue, once that dries, that will help make it much more secure as well. And then that's how you want to finish off the end, at least in this way. And obviously we have this loop on the ribbon end where you can attach whatever findings you want to attach as well. So do it this way, attach your findings, or a button and loop closure, that's completely up to you. And then you'll have your finished bracelet. So this is the finished piece. Once I've attached my ribbon ends on both ends, and then my clasp, so in this case a lobster claw clasp, and an extender chain. Like I said, you can choose to finish it however you want to. And you have a nice simple wraparound bracelet here, the style of it, but just breaking it up a little bit and making it a bit different by adding in that knot in the middle. And obviously depending what materials you use, you can get completely different looks as well. So what you do now is use it here, and then you have your finished bracelet that you can just use. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching.